Hi, my name is Kristen and I'm your host for Icons of Naples, this series where we honor our Naples community heroes, our movers, shakers, and history makers who helped make our community the place we love to call home. Today we are honored to sit down with Dr. Lois Bolin, also known as the Old Naples Historian. I don't know if many of you know that. And she has been keeping track and records, and she's dedicated her life to how Naples remembers itself. So, of course, it was absolutely fitting to have her on today's podcast as an icon of Naples. Thank you so much for coming and being on here today.
My pleasure.
As a teacher, a storyteller, a community leader, I don't even know where to start. It's like so much. But I think we'll start at the beginning.
Okay.
You came to Naples, what originally brought you here?
My ex-husband's business. He was with Anheuser-Busch.
Okay.
And he was in marketing. He had the whole southeast region. And so Naples was part of his territory. And Helen Bell, who was the owner of the Budweiser distributorship, but at that time they didn't have very many women. So she hired him, brought him here, gave him a profit-sharing system, and long story short, when we paid off the debt in about 4 years, she got mad and took it from a subchapter S to something else. So that was the beginning of the end, but that's what originally brought us here.
Okay. All right. It's interesting. Our family had the building on Goodlet Road. That was one of the places that they I guess distributed out of.
Rosemary Lane, where it butted into that.
Yeah, we had that building for 20 years after they did. Yeah. So I didn't know that. See, I learned something new even
there you go.
With all my research.
Helen Bell, she's a story unto herself. Lord have mercy.
Well, it was interesting. And now, of course, it's a storage unit. So the change of Naples, occurs.
Oh, yeah.
So before you were a Naples historian, because I know you're very rooted in knowing the history of Naples and people and places and all the things that's going on, what got you involved in the local community here? Because I don't think we all know the Lois of now.
No.
We don't know the Lois of at least my generation maybe doesn't. We don't know the Lois of before all of that.
46 years ago.
Yeah. See.
Yeah.
So what were you doing in the community when you got here? And
well, my first move is whenever I go to a new community is I go play tennis, because that's where I build my base from, because I was a fairly good tennis player. So as soon as you play once, everybody wants you to be on their team. And so I started from that, and then eventually got involved with things like the YMCA, helped start the sneaker ball. And
I remember the sneaker ball.
yeah, remember when it first started? It was over at Key Wade Island.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, on the Cocomas, the little boat that would take you over there. That was
that was such a neat time.
Yeah. And so anyway, I got involved with that, and then different things, and got involved with the hospital ball, which most people don't know. It used to be called the Salubrious Celebration.
That I did not know.
And I was the first person on the committee. I said, what is with this name? You got to change this name. There's a new hospital. You have to get the hospital name, because if they take it, you're out of SOL. So he said, well, a big donor they wanted to do that. I said, well, I bet this big donor would be real upset if the hospital ball. So anyway, they changed it to the hospital ball. And then got involved. Just so many things. In this community, you do one thing, you do something.
You get involved in another one, and then they ask you to be on a committee. One year I was on 10 committees in 1 year, and I had no time to work.
No, I just wanted to show people how to do it. So I'm going to show you how to do it, then you have to pick it up and do it next year. That's with Lou Gehrig's disease. I did their first event using the floral designs were the big thing. I had all different florists design things for the tables. And then the Friday before the event, I had national judges come in to judge all the flowers. And
neat.
I think it was a Naples Illustrated. I forget which one. It was on the cover of a magazine, the winner of that. So, but they wanted me to do it again the next year. I said, no. I said he was going to teach you, and that's all I can do.
Well, when you can show them the way,
Oh, yeah.
then have the next person carry it on, and the next person, and some people add or subtract as the years go on.
Exactly.
I think that's nice because then it doesn't get stale.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Because I want to show you, do what you want to do. You've got the basics, and there you go.
Oh, see, we're already jumping right in. So not only your community involvement, but you have a passion for the preservation, as well as the charity and the philanthropy. So let's focus on that for a little bit. What sparked that passion for the preservation of? I mean, I keep telling people I'm on my third go round here of change.
Oh yeah.
You
grew up here too, right?
1978 is when
Okay.
we got here. I was 10. You guys
Okay.
can do the math. We don't have to.
That's when I got here too. That was my age. No.
But you really have a passion for preserving the history, as well as what's happened in Naples. So where did that start?
I'm Southern.
I love that. I love that.
Southern, and Southern is all about history. And I always say that history is nothing more than families' stories, a collection of family stories. You're telling stories about families that did stuff they ought not to do, and stories about families that did what they were supposed. So it's just stories about families. So it's that's how I got. And the more I would learn, I would get so excited about it. And then there was a big thing happening down in the city of Naples, which most people can't delineate the city of Naples versus Greater Naples. And they wanted to put sidewalks all the way down Gulf Shore Boulevard down to Port Royal. And Naples in its origin was never designed to do that. So someone hired me to help get people fired up, so to speak, to come speak out against it. And we did that, and they actually stopped the sidewalks near the Naples Pier area. They didn't take it off because, my God, they were going to take off so much off of Gordon Drive. It just would have been horrible. And so then a family came up to me and said, wow, you did a great job of stopping this. That's so good. I said, well, it really hadn't stopped. You have to stay on it, or it's just the same stuff is going to come back again. And then she says, well, I want you to help me save Naples history. I go, well, what does that mean? She goes, whatever you think it means. And then I came back and said, well, we can do this, but we can't just tell the historic district story or just downtown on Naples and its 5 business districts, which I helped label for the city because they never had really looked at it that way. You remember that?
Right.
They were just
I remember the map.
Yeah, the map, exactly. When we point that out and say, you always talk about 3rd Street and 5th, but you've got Creighton Cove, you've got the waterfront between 10 City Bayfront, and the 10th Street Design District is what I had called it in 2010. So what are we at, 15 years later? They finally changed the name officially, but it's on that map from 2010. So I just got involved with this family member to save. She goes, well, I don't want to save Marco's history or Michaeli's history. I said, but we have to talk about it all. And when the light shines down on history, where's it going to go to? It's going to go to the historic district, because that's where it all began. And Marco, it will go to the Marco Inn, and where the Collier family, the other Collier family started that. And the same thing with the Macaulay and Everglades City, those specific families. But the goose that laid the golden egg for Collier County was City of Naples, specifically within the historic district. And that's not diminishing what any of the other, but each community has its own character.
Yes.
And that's why I said Naples, Collier County is one of the most diverse counties. Like, what are you talking about? It's all white people. Well, no. A lot of crackers here.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of Indian. There's a lot of mixture. But the point is, wherever you want to go, if you want to live in a rural community, you got Immokalee. If you want to be close to fishing, you got Marco. And if you like fishing like outlaws, you got Everglades City and Chokoloskee,
Right.
And so the more I learned, the more excited I got because I could go teach. That's when I went before the city council. I said, I have walked this using this walking map, and you can do it, and it's like 3 miles. You don't need sidewalks, as you can walk and cross over, and you could hit Fifth Avenue, 3rd, 10th, just do the whole gambit. So
I remember the walk when that came out, the walking map.
yeah,
And it really became a thing. In fact, I think they used it for the Segway tours when they were here before COVID. And
I hope they go back to it. You know, if you go like at the parking garage, at the dock, and at the pier, another place, they'll have that map up on the wall and says you were here.
yeah, there's a lot of history outside. Like we know people come here and they say Naples, like you said, they don't delineate, and they come here and they say, "Oh, I want to be in Naples," and I'm like, "Well, what part of Naples?"
Exactly.
Because everything has Naples, Florida zip code. So what part do you want to be in? And they don't realize. I believe we're the largest county square miles
I think
in
so.
the state, but we're kind of a baby town. We have history, but we're still. We were kind of slow to get the growth in the beginning, I think.
Yeah, well, it's the reason it's called the final frontier, because it was. And when you consider there were no roads into, I think it was 1915, 1917, the road from Fort Myers to Lee County. I'm sorry, from Naples to Bonita Springs area, and that was a full day ride.
Yeah.
In your buggy or whatever you were riding on. It wasn't that it was, and it wasn't until 1928 that Tamiami Trail from Miami connected, that the whole loop collected up.
And that's, I think, when we started our growth. I know when, I think it was probably around 94, 95, that I remember we had to go to, when you had a business, if you wanted to, there was one place down by the Dairy Queen. It was where's my words? A office supply store.
Oh yeah. Hoffman's.
And Hoffman's office supply.
Yeah, I don't know why. Boom! I just thought about that.
And I mean, I remember you could go in there and find pretty much anything.
Everything.
It was like Ace Hardware for office supplies. But then as your business grew, you needed other things like printer stuff and things, and you had to drive all the way to Fort Myers to go to Office Depot. And of course, we thought that was a big deal. But the growth between here and there was minimal at best.
Yeah.
Back in 94. And here we are in 2025. And it's almost like it's all connected.
Well, you figure, what was it, 54 is when the first hospital was built, this little, Miss Thelma was the nurse there, this little itty-bitty thing. Until then, they had to go have their babies in Fort Myers.
Wow.
And same thing with banking. That's about the time some Mamie Took's Bank on the corner of 8th and 5th Avenue, that was only bank. And when that came up in 50, you'd have to do banking some other place.
Wow.
Yeah.
Again, people, we've seen a lot of growth in the last, I'd say, 20 years versus the previous 20, in my opinion. But it's incredible when you think back to those previous 20. How, I don't know, there's just something I find nostalgic. I got here in 78. What year did you get here?
78, 79.
79.
Yeah.
So right through the same. So you've seen it too. Like those first years was kind of like, and then Pelican Bay came in 1980. And my mom had said that Myra Daniels and Pelican Bay will help change and shape the people who come here in the future for North Naples. And I was like, I don't know, young at the time.
Nobody's going to go up this far.
It's so far.
It's
It's out of town. If you lived in, we called it Pine Ridge because it was all agricultural horses and chickens. And now it's Pine Ridge Estates.
Estates, yeah, of course, of course. Well, you look at Rosemary Cemetery, which is right in front on the corner of where Barnes & Nobles used to be, and the Walgreens, and that little metal fence thing, that's the cemetery that was brought up there in the 1930s.
And that was brought from where? I'm trying to remember.
Down near Creighton Cove, around the bank area there.
That's right. They moved it.
And they said, no, this will be here forever. Nobody's ever going to be near that or worry about it. Well, hey, Lake Park is where people used to vacation from down when they lived in the city. They would go, that'd be their...
They'd go out of town.
They'd go out of town. They just go up to Lake Park and be a little more casual.
So since we're on history, Naples Backyard History. So in 2007, You founded Naples Backyard History. So what was the vision behind that project?
Well, it was tandem onto Naples cultural landscape. That was the first project I did with this family, which was to talk about. It wasn't just the landscape, the plants and the flowers, although that plays a big part in it. It was about the cultural landscape of this old Naples, and this is about when the sidewalk time came in. So I invited Charles Beerbaum, who was one of the renowned landscape artists. He has a fancier name than that, but we'll just use that. And listened to his program. I went up to one of his seminars up in Chicago, and I said, you know what, let's see if we can bring him down here to do an evaluation and let's talk to the city. Well, that just threw everybody in the city. What are they doing? Why are they doing this? They're going to do something really bad. And I just said, if you want him, you could just take him around, do what you want to do. I don't care. I just want his input. He's not going to change his input as he begins to look at the flow and what it's all about and so forth. And so we did. We left it with the city staff, and they got to meet with him and do their thing. And he came and gave his presentation, which was phenomenal, very educational. They were very grateful afterwards. Don't know that it did much, but the point is it gave me a better insight at how to really look at the flow of the community and what all of that means. And so that started, and then I said, okay, we have to start doing programs. That's how Naples Backyard History came about. Long story short, I asked Joan Tobin, was the owners of 3rd Street, I won't use names, but I said, that building's been empty for a while. Could we use that for a little museum until somebody wants to rent it? And she gave it to us. It was almost catty-corner from the 7-Eleven right there, I think where Lily Pulitzer's is or was. And so we set up this little museum, and I started bringing in old-timers and filming a little bit and putting in a little cassette so people could come. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had a lot of creativity. And then at Tent City, I asked the same thing, but let me have this space and let me create some stuff about the waterfront. The history of the waterfront's huge in this area.
So much so.
Yeah. I had the map drawn of the Gordon Bay and how it all on the floor. Had this artist come in and do that. And then I went over to Kevin's at Bayfront and said, let me use this space and let me put up an exhibit which talks about Naples Heritage Trail and so how I can pull all those together. So it was a way to educate the community. It's also a way to light a fire under the county museums and other places who were talking about history, but they weren't doing.
There wasn't a dedication to it, I don't think.
No, and now there is, and people have. I wasn't very well liked, believe me. You know, when you start going in somebody's turf, oh Lord have mercy. That's why they call them hysterical societies. But so people don't like you on their turf,
right?
And I'm like, well, then do. I mean, I don't really care, but I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to do stories on it. And I'm going to promote the whole area, and they go, of history, and they go, well, what if they don't want you to? Well, I said, then tell them to stop, because that would make a great story.
Of course it would, yeah.
Why do
and
you
you
wanna
don't strike me as somebody who's a turf person. You're more of an educator.
Yeah, I want to educate you on this little bit of turf and take it over and do your thing with it. Just don't sit on it and do nothing. You know, don't take in money for your donations and then keep it so isolated. I still have people that when they need information on history or any kind of resource, instead of calling the other places that they could get, they'll call me.
Right.
And I always kind of laugh. I said, well, and these are people from the city or the county that call me. I'm like, why don't you? And then we laugh because I know why.
Yeah, I've had, when it came to resources during moments of Naples needs, I was getting some of those calls, and I'm like, we all help each other out. That's why we are a community.
That's exactly right.
And when it comes to our history, this is one of the reasons we wanted to do this conversation with you, is because we're losing so much of it as certain generations start to pass away or move away.
Yeah.
We've had some people, I was doing my research looking in some of the names that you had told me, and some of those people that are connected, you kind of, it's like a line when you start looking at history, like this person is
yeah.
connected to this person.
Oh,
And they've
wonderful.
moved. They've just moved out of Naples. And so it's very important, I think.
like Lake Placid, that's a lot of them moved up to that area.
It seems like, right? It does seem like it.
Yeah.
What do you find is some of the things that you remember or that have just really touched you historically, or stories that you like to share and repeat, or just maybe you felt like, wow, that's really deep touching to you?
Well, there are two that always kind of hit me, and one is the Gladesman culture.
Ooh.
And I wrote an article about the Tamiami Trail was going to be a part of America's historic trail that they're going to promote and so forth. And I wrote, oh, isn't that great? It's going to be wonderful. There's great marketing opportunities. And after the article came out, I think I was writing for Florida Weekly then. This guy called me. He goes, "Did you write this article?" I said, "Yes, I did." "Well, yes, I did." He goes, "So you want to take away my rights?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, if you're promoting this this trail, then that means the government has control of it, and they want to stop me from fishing and hunting on the land that I grew up on." I said, "Well, wait a minute. Tell me about this." And so after he finished telling me his story, this is where the CERT plan kind of came from for the restoration of the Everglades.
Okay.
They were all part of that. And then they finally had the National Historic Register, is that right? The National Historic Register had to come in and interview these people who had fished and hunted out in that area their whole life. And as they were interviewing them, this phrase came out, "I think this is a culture that has just identified itself."
Okay.
Isn't that crazy? It's
Yeah.
a culture that had just, people just really didn't think that much about Gladesman. They just were whatever. Mm-hmm. Bunch of rednecks running around and hunting and fishing, but that's a culture.
Yes.
That designation of a American's scenic highway, that it would have taken away their rights. So they de-designated a certain area of it between Everglade and I'm going to say Marco Island on 41, whatever, in that area. So that they de-designated. And somebody just did an article in one of the local newspapers, and they wrote like the Heritage Trail was still there, but it's not. It's been de-designated, so it's not a part of that.
Oh, that's interesting. Sometimes the best of intentions may have a skew in there that's not the best of intentions.
Especially when it comes to the government dipping in your business, that's certainly
Yeah, maybe we should keep let's keep some of the historical stuff private.
Okay.
Now, do I have this right? Because I've known you a while, but I don't remember this. You had launched the Stone Crab Festival, or you were involved in the Stone? They tell me, this is what I read, that you helped launch events like the Stone Crab Festival and the Columbus Ships Exhibit.
Right.
So tell me,
How did that come about?
yes, because we love the Stone Crab Festival every year.
Well, when it started, I think it was 2010 is when it started. And this is when I'd put together the Waterfront Association, the old Naples Waterfront Association,
Okay.
because I was trying to promote the Tin City, that area, down at the dock, and over where Bayfront, because that was a working waterfront. That's where the ships came in. At Tin City, they came in to be worked on. That's where they harvested the crabs and
Yes.
so forth. That's where the railroad train, the tracks came down and picked up a load, took it off. They backed up in the Bayfront area. It wasn't Bayfront, but you know what I mean. And took the food. So I really was oh my God, herd cats on Red Bull. because everybody wanted to be, they didn't want to do more. You've got more money than I do. You should do that. And so it was just got to be all this craziness. So we got together 3 or 4 people and they say, let's put together the Stone Crab Festival. Let's work out these events and let's promote the whole area. And nobody gets more credit than anybody. It's just let's promote it. Mm-hmm. And so there were 2 very fine marketing people, and I think I'm going to remember their names. She used to be at Hodges, and she just moved out. I know you know who she is, and the other beautiful lady. They were right in behind wanting to do that. Like they did all the background stuff because I'm easy to work with. And so we had the radios, promos that were down there. We had water taxis. We had people donated their boats and took them on a water taxi that would take them down to the dock restaurant in that area, and then they would take them up to not Bayfront, but what's that other, the big new development? Not new. It's not Bayfront. It's not Tent City.
I'm thinking Hamilton Harbor, but I don't know.
No, it's behind
far.
it. Oh, God, I can't believe I'm doing this. It's where, anyway, whatever. But they would just go around the whole circle, and they just would keep driving people. But some people wouldn't get off. They're like, we got to change this next time. They're like, we're just going to sit here and ride around and drink. Yeah. Anyway, so the first year it was great. We didn't make a lot of money. But oh my God, the promotion and the value that each organization got, and we had parking across the street across the street from Bayfront. Well, didn't have that anymore after a period of time, but and so that was to promote the Working Waterfront, and that's like Fifth Avenue had its thing. They tried to take the Stone Crab Festival away from the area and give it to Fifth Avenue. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Stone Crab belongs by the water.
It belongs right there, and you can still do your thing, but you don't own the festival. That stays down here.
It belongs. I agree with that. It belongs by the water because it's a water thing.
Oh, yeah.
It makes sense.
And you still got Kelly's that they get their fish catch in, and they process it right there.
Yeah, that's an icon.
Yeah, yes, indeed.
That's an icon.
That and the Lehman Legacy, which that was a football history award that we've done every year for almost 15 years.
Well, explain to everybody what that is for our listeners.
Well, that Rex Lehman started Naples High School football, and he had to he worked for one of the wealthy families. I won't say their name right now, but he drove to Fort Myers to get uniforms, and that's back when they had 6-man teams, 10-man teams. There were 10-man teams? Anyway, so he drove up, got uniforms, came down, and taught the kids how to play football on Cambia Park field. It was dirt. Wow. Taught them how to play there. And then when the high school opened up, they were ready to start their program in 1950. And he did it because he wanted to see his grandson play football. And unfortunately, his grandson was bitten by a mosquito and got rheumatic fever and wasn't able, but their love for football stayed. So he stayed involved with the football. And Jean Walker Humphreys, who's a name I gave to you, her mother called me one day. She goes, we've got this stuff that my grandfather got from the football club, and we want to donate it to Naples High School. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Tell me about it. And as they were talking, I said, well, why don't we just create an award to go with it? The Lehman Legacy Award. They said, well, we don't have any, what do we give? And I said, well, I'll call Shula's, and I'll get a room, whatever. We'll get some little gift certificates, and it'll at least be a $500 award that we could give to some student who loves Naples football.
What a great idea.
And it has now grown. Happy to say we now have a sponsor for $2,000, which is equated to like what they did for the basketball scholarships that they give to individuals who are promoting and doing the community work.
Wow.
So all this came out sort of at the same time. The walking map, the Stone Crab Festival, and then the Lehman Legacy Award. So that was part of a thing called City Fest originally.
Right.
That filtered out.
You had a busy few years.
Yeah, but it was
Sounds
all
like a decade.
yeah. But it all had those links
Yes.
that went with it. It's like World War II, the history of World War II. When I began digging into the research, I thought, wow, Florida played a huge role in World War II. And as a matter of fact, if you Google Florida's role in World War II, there's a map that comes up, a 72-page guidebook with over 150 sites on it. The Florida World War II trail. They said, "Oh, I want to walk that." I said, "Well, you better get a lot of shoes, honey, because that's all over the state of Florida." And then the more I researched into that, I began to meet some of the old timers that were here. Earl Hodges was a merchant marine. Peter Thomas, his role certainly in the
TV.
D-Day and so forth, and certainly his promotion of the men and women who fought during World War II and who were nurses.
I was fortunate to meet him once.
Peter,
Yeah. I was so fortunate to meet him.
love him. Just,
Great man. Yeah. And Earl, too. I grew up behind the original funeral home.
I heard you telling Thelma that the
Yeah.
other night. That's really cute.
Yeah, I grew up back there, and I'd ride my bike. There was a 7-Eleven around the corner and want to get my Slurpee. And
Yeah.
so I'd see them quite a bit. And, we just would stop and sometimes chat and things. And Earl, yeah.
He was great.
I mean, these are just parts of history that I love capturing and hearing. And
and all the things they've been involved in. Good Lord. I was sorry about Hodges University, but it is what it is. So
It's part of the education that's going on right now, I think. Or, with whatever's going on with education. I can't keep up with it.
And he started the junior deputies, so that was...
I did not know that
Yeah.
until probably, 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, that's where that came from.
Yep, he was involved.
I knew he was our first funeral director, he was the coroner and the funeral director, and Thelma was the first nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm hoping to have her on.
Oh, yeah.
Because that'll be just a hoot of stories.
Fabulous. That would be fabulous.
So you also do you still have the undercover historian and the old Naples Historian? Were those articles, or what were those?
I write for Life in Naples now, but I
Okay.
don't call myself the undercover. That sort of came from Florida Weekly, although they never trademarked it or something. Every now and again I'll use that, but that was for my column with Florida Weekly.
Okay.
And Old Naples Historian. Somebody says, "Are you old? Is it Old Naples, or..." It should be the historian of Old Naples, because I'm not an expert, as my husband would always like to say. "Oh, she knows all about Florida. She knows everything about World War II." Okay, no. So I know this much in the spectrum of the size of this room, but the old Naples area. And when most people think about the historic district, they think that it's all of downtown Naples, or they come up with this, and they don't realize the finite little area from 9th Street to 13th to the Gulf to...
Tin City, yeah.
Let's see, that's... What's that main road? 3rd Street, 3rd, 4th, back to that. So it's a very small area, the historic district.
I didn't realize it was even that small.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you look at Old Naples history, what stands out to you the most of that, say, just that district, the old?
Well, obviously the pier's the first iconic thing that you really notice. And then you notice that ugly-ass building that's to the right of the pier, which is where the Haldeman House used to be. And if we had kept that, what a beautiful place that could be. But long story short, that's the way the cookie crumbles. So the pier, and I don't know where it is right now in terms of being the funding, but in 1960 when Hurricane Donna hit, September the 10th, 1960, just wiped out this town. And the pier, and then, of course, the city council was going to have to tax the residents. Well, that was Mr. Norris, Lester Norris and Delta Norris of the Norris Center, came up and said they were the largest shareholders in Texaco. So they were very philanthropic for the area. So they said, we're going to pay to have the pier fixed, but you can't charge people money. This is their lifeline. This is their connection to the community, and it's has to be free to go on it. And he goes, and I'm going to get this certain kind of wood from Brazil. We're going to bring it up here, and it's going to stay forever. Well, 10 years later, it started rotting out because there was a certain little worm that it's like that wood was like hot fudge sundaes. They were just chewing it up. He goes, okay, I'm going to pay for it again. Again, they're going to tax the people because that's the only way they can do it to get the money to keep it going. We're going to pay for it, but I want you to put it in your documents that you can never charge the people tax, and you will never charge for people to go onto the pier. And Mr. Ben Parks, they used to own the Parks building where Baba's is on 5th. He came out of a city council meeting and said, Mr. Norris, I can't put it in there, but as long as I'm alive, you never have to worry about it. And so every now and again, the city council will think, well, maybe we just need to charge to go on the pier. And then all the people who've been here a while go crazy and say, no, you can't do that. So we'll see what happens with...
Well, we have other taxing abilities now with the tourist tax and things like that. So hopefully we can keep it that way for a few more generations at least.
Well, it should be. And it's a fishing pier.
Yeah.
People don't want to do fishing. And, sometimes stupid people do stupid things. And the hooks get in some of the pelicans, but that's an educational opportunity. You can have somebody there to take care of that. But it's always been a fishing pier because that's where kids that don't have money, they come down, they get to...
Well, you get to everybody I know. My grandfather used to fish there. I mean, I can't think of a relative who did not fish on the pier. I even was dragged down there to fish on the pier, and I don't really like baiting a hook. So I can fish, but I don't like touch things.
Don't want to do that.
Right. I don't want to do that. I noticed with the new pier, one of the things was this, and it's in my house, it was a big conversation of, at first, we had the bait shack and like a burger shack,
right,
which I thought was great because you could service the people, kind of bring in a little income and then service the people on the pier and a few people off the pier who feel like a burger, right? Kind of like the back home concessions we had. Mm-hmm. And then one of the plans that came out was this 2-story, I want to say bougie because that's the only word that comes to mind, concrete restaurant. And of course, there was a lot of people who were against that. And the finances of it was just impossible. But I have to say this last go round, like you said, I'm not sure where they're at now, but the last go round I saw, I was disappointed because they didn't have the bait shack and the burger shack. It was just the pier. And I hope that they bring that back because the bait shack, some people don't agree with the fishing, and maybe it's kind of like, in my opinion, sort of like a political thing of, well, if we don't put the bait shack, less fisher people will come and do the fishing. But the thing I remember most about the fishing was when you had the fishing, and like you said, it was a teaching moment, and people would get together and rescue the pelican and take the hook out, or have to call the conservancy. But it was, everybody got together and took care of the problem. So to me, it's not a problem. But what I noticed that it brought the most of was when you had people fishing, it brought other fish, and it brought the pelicans. I go down to 8th Street a lot, and I see no pelicans because we have no fishing.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen, I'll see every once in a while, I'll see a couple of pelicans skimming across, 6, 7 in the morning. But it's part of our history to have fishing on a fishing pier.
Yeah.
And it brings the people who don't want the fishing because it hurts something. I'm like, but what about the other part of that it brings? The other fish, the bigger fish. You can see the dolphins. Every once in a while you see a shark, but you'll see, I'm with you on that. That's my, that's my rant on the pier.
That's what Naples was built upon, fishing and hunting and drinking. So that was its foundation.
Yeah, we need more than just the one.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's quite a few bars down there. Yeah, that's funny. Fishing, hunting, it's so true. Now let's talk about the spirit of 45. We briefly talked about that when you sat down. So you were a leader in bringing it to Florida, really, I think, as a whole, honoring World War II vets. Tell me how that came about.
Well, I heard about it through Bernadette DePaglia. You know
Yeah,
Bernadette,
yes,
right?
yes.
She had said something about the spirit of 45, so I looked it up and I called them. And she and I, along with Arthrex and the Hilton, put together the first event. She was with another company. I won't say it now because she's no longer there. So then after I put in the first thing and I was sending pictures and so forth, and they said, why don't you come out to the national meeting? So they sent me an invitation. I went out and got to see what all these places were doing, got to meet some really cool people, got to see the big, tall statue of the Kiss it's in San Diego. And so we came back, and because I was now getting into World War II and who was what, I'd made connections with a few people who could get it. So started that. At our second meeting, we had like 200 people there. It was before we had about 50.
Wow.
And then every year thereafter, we had the room maxed out at 350 people. And Clark Hill, bless his heart, he came up to me, he said, you know, Lois, I know this thing is growing and you're very loyal. He goes, and I know you want to stay here, but don't feel bad if you ever need to take it away, because we understand it. The one where I just showed you the picture with all the veterans, that was, COVID was the following year. And we did that at St. John's the Evangelist. And it was their basketball, their athletic area. They had a fabulous sound system. We had over 650 people there.
That is incredible.
Yeah, and we did it like a USO show, and we had like a little green room. And this time we could have a room we could bring people around. They could do their song, their dance, whatever it was going to be. That we could do that, and it was just about. And then I got the state to identify. See, well, it was 2015. That would have been the 75th anniversary of the ending of World War II. And so I got the proclamation from the state, and then got all the different communities involved. Fleet Week, we had the announcement of the 75th anniversary during Fleet Week. No, that wasn't the 70th anniversary. And that would be 10 years later, which would be now. So, and just kind of kept it going like that. That's how I met my husband. Not how, but I needed someone to introduce a World War II veteran. And I was at this event with Trey Radel, was running for office, and I wanted him to talk about August 14th because that was when it was announced the unconditional surrender of the Japanese. They didn't sign it until September the 2nd, but they'd announced it. And I wanted Trey Radel to talk about that because that was when the election was on August the 14th. And I said something about it. He was like, oh, yeah. I felt like he once wanted to pat me on the head, go, oh, aren't you sweet?
I can't see anybody doing that to you, Lois.
And then this guy over in the corner says, you need to listen to that lady. And I said, who is that? They said, oh, that's Wayne Smith. I go, okay, who is that? And then they told me, I go, oh, he was a POW, great. I'm going to get him to see if he'll introduce my World War II veteran, which thankfully he did. He wanted an hour to speak. I said, you got 5 minutes, buddy. So anyway, that's how that kicked off. And then after COVID, there were a lot of groups doing a lot of things. And part of doing the Spirit of 45 is I wanted to bring in as many veteran groups to showcase, because it wasn't about showcasing me or Southwest Florida Veterans Alliance, which is our foundation. It wasn't about the Spirit of 45. It was about the spirit of everybody coming together. So the VFW, got the Marine Corps League, got the Submariners, JROTC, and the County Museum, every other group I could get, the VA, any other group that I could promote and have there, we did that. And I felt like everybody was kind of doing okay, and I couldn't find a place that could take 600 people and comp it. That's what St. John's gave us, is they covered everything. Wow. That's why we had such a bang-out program. We could do it, but we do smaller versions. It's called the Spirit of 45. It's been so long since I've talked about this. honoring the greatest generation and those who followed.
Yeah, it's because now we've moved into those who
Yes.
followed for the flights and
Right.
everything, right?
Yeah.
After you mentioned COVID, so after COVID, how do you feel that affected not only the endeavors you're involved in, like the Spirit of 45, afterwards, coming back together as a community, historically? I mean, this is going to be part of our history, how we recovered from as a community, but also how these groups were they able to reconnect after COVID? Or have we kind of...
Yeah, well, I've stayed connected to them, like Gulf Coast Veterans and Friends. You know, every Saturday they have a breakfast at Fleischman Park every Saturday. And then the Baker Center has the Veterans in Paradise program. And the VFW has their coffee every day from 10 to 12. So it doesn't interfere with the Saturdays. So, and the VFW is kicking up its game, and of course the American Legion. So they all are still kind of doing their thing.
Okay.
I don't know that they do it with each other. It almost needs an umbrella group to do
Right.
that.
But you feel like that post-COVID, there's still people they've re-engaged the way they did
I think,
before. In this.
Then
these
you've got
groups.
Beth Haley, who is Gold Star Mothers, and we did a lot with Gold Star Mothers and Blue Star Mothers and being involved. In Alfie Oaks, we had the Victory Gardens, and we used to give bags of vegetables away to everybody. It was a real fun thing. It wasn't a lot of work for me because I had so many people doing so many pieces. But I would only bring in people who wanted to do it for the greater good. You start getting people that get little, I just can't handle that.
That's why this podcast was important to all of us that are involved, is because we weren't looking for a popularity contest. We were looking for the history and the people like yourself who have not only the history knowledge, but you've connected people to create other things, and then said, like the Stonecraft Festival, here you go.
Yeah, right.
Here you go. It's all yours now, because you're not looking for the accolades. It's more of the connections, because those are the generational connections.
Yeah, right. And it's hard to let go of those things, but it's like you got, even like with the Christmas parade. I've been doing the Christmas parade since around 2009. Yeah. And then I took it to be filmed for TV. That was 2014, 15, whatever.
I remember that the first year.
Yeah. And so I always try to get different people to do the judging, and how I tied in the history is that every Grand Marshal had a significant role in the history of Naples, or the history in something. We've had Thelma, the Wynn family, their whole family came in. And so anyway, all of those things, but I'm passing that torch over again to Matt Moen, because he grew up here, and he's been on the judging thing, and has been very involved in the community. The same thing with the Lehman Legacy. Of course, I pushed him into those. I go, this is where you start. It's like my son. You need to start laying the foundation for your giving back to the community.
I call it voluntoldism.
Yeah. That's what you need to do. And then he, so he's good.
Well, no, that's a part that I don't think a lot of people, if you're local and you watch the film part, or you happen to know you or follow you on social media, you realize, the Naples Parade, the emceeing of it and the narration of it is Lois.
And the paying for it was Lois. And actually Wayne, my husband, have to give him.
We have Wayne here for anybody who we gesture to him. We gesture like this because he's actually in the room with us. And I don't think people realize all that it entails pre-parade. And I remember the first year that it was broadcast, and I think one of my kids was sick, so I was home with them, and Dad went with the other one, and I watched it. We watched it on the TV, and I was like, "Oh, wait, that's Lois."
Yeah. And it was on Fifth Avenue. We're upstairs. The lighting. It was like a trial and error. It was so bad, but it was so fun. But now we do it in front of the city hall. But now, allegedly, they're looking to see how to bring cable from Fifth into City Hall, so they can actually film it on Fifth Avenue, which is great to be in all that excitement and all that energy.
Right.
So I'm not sure where they are. I have to call them and see, although that's not my purview now.
Moving on to another project.
Yeah, I think I officially will hand it over, because I said, well, first of all, I said, you're going to have to pay for it. Well, actually, we have costs a lot of money to do that, as you know what that would be. I'm talking to the young man filming here now. He knows what it is for the setup. But the city pays for part, we paid for part, and then the guy who did the filming and so forth, he donated his part. So we were able.
So we have a new fundraiser coming up. It sounds like.
Yeah, well, yeah.
A new fundraiser for that. Now, circling back, I don't know where this came from. I don't recall off the top of my head. The bronze heritage markers. I read about it, but now I'm missing in my brain what it was. Where did those start, and what do they represent? Because unless you live here, you probably don't even know about it.
All right, that started Dolly Broderick. Do you remember Dolly?
Yes.
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 Okay. Dolly and Vinny DiPasquale and a group of people. Yeah, I remember all those guys. They wanted to, 1928. I think it was in 1978 because they wanted to celebrate whatever that anniversary would be. What's that? 50 years from 23, 73 when they did it.
Yeah, because 100 was 20. Yeah, 23. Yeah.
So then they started locating different areas to the significance to mark its history. If you go to Cambria Park, you'll see these bronze markers. They're between the state markers and the local bronze markers. There's like 20. And so that started from that. They raised the money to buy the markers. So they're expensive. They're a couple of thousand. Well, I don't know what they are now, but with the metal. And so I began researching it, and I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Let's take a look at that. Tin City was supposed to be done. It was never done. Kelly's Fish House was supposed to be done, and that was never done. And was there another one? No, it was just, and then the canal, the Indian Canal.
Okay.
That became a state marker versus these were two local markers. And I found a couple of great guys who love history, and so they paid for one sign at at Kelly's. I paid for the sign at Tin City, and it has our little name on there. Yeah. And then down at in front of Blue Provence, there's a marker, and it was the first marker in the state of Florida that had both sides and then had maps on it, because they had never really done the both side with the maps. I don't know why, but
that's a great idea, though.
Yeah. And Mike Pepe was the individual who spearheaded that and got it going, and he wanted to donate in honor of his mother and have his mother pay for it. So that was fine. I didn't care. It got up, and that's all that really matters.
Right. So I don't think people realize when they go around what they are,
Well, the city had this great guy who could do the GPS, all the markings, the
geotagging and marking, yeah.
And I had to figure all this stuff out and give it to him. And we had that all set up on the city website where you could just click it and it would take you there. And I had to write the descriptions of everything. And then when he went left to go for a bigger company, they took it down because the person they hired can't do it. Doesn't have a clue. And so all that work.
Well, maybe they'll bring it back after they hear this.
Maybe that's going to fire me up enough to go say, let's do this.
It's just a page. What does it take?
It takes. And then, and then I had a QR code that we put on every marker that would link into that. Of course.
Now that would modernize it for the younger generation.
Have the QR code that would go with it. I'm pretty sure they're gone off there now, although I could get them and put them back up. Yeah. But it's funny how when politicians get involved, they like to take the credit. And that's all I'll say about that.
Well, sometimes people, you just gotta, what's the term? Let them.
Let them.
It's just not
I like to call it bitch slap, but I can't really do that.
Well, there's also that. That's a very
Yeah.
Southern thing.
Yeah, it's like I get up and say every day, I love Jesus. I'm going to work for the good of Jesus. But by 10:30,
You're ready.
I want to slap somebody.
I'm so glad you're saying that because it's a little refreshing. Because sometimes I just want to know why.
Yeah,
Why
why?
is this happening today?
Right, exactly. And you know in your heart you want to be a good person. But
You said you were from the South, but I don't think we got that. Where were you from before you came to Naples?
well, I actually was born in the Bible Belt of the South, and my hometown was the Buckle, and that hometown is Rock Hill, South Carolina.
Okay, so yeah, you're definitely
A
Southern.
former home near Tammy Faye and Jim.
That's where I've heard that before.
Yeah, we call it the PTL Club, Pass the Loot.
Now, question on the bronze markers were the heritage markers, and then there's the Heritage Trail Museum, which was like a micro museum. I read.
Right.
Is that still inside the Naples trolley station, or has that been moved?
They do have some of the items that are still. They haven't been there in a while. I need to go take a look at it. But we had put up Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. We know the Rivers of Grass, but Ernest Coe. Do you know who Ernest Coe is?
No, I do not.
Well, Marjorie Stoneman calls him the father of the Everglades. He came in 1928 and was a fancy landscaper, so he was going to do all the landscaping for the people in Palm Beach and so forth. And when he moved into town, so people said, "Oh, I want you to go and see the Everglades because you really need to see that." And he was like, "Well, I've heard about this Everglades, so I'll go take a look at it." And when he walked out into it, he said, "A white fire struck through my head, and I knew what my life's work must be. I must save this." And he intuitively understood what all this meant to all of Southwest Florida and really the world to have this place preserved and taken care of. And so he fought from up until his death to get as much of it preserved as he possibly could. And so I got these two statues from a folk artist. I've been down to, it was Chuckaluski, but there's another little island, Paradise Island, that's like really off the beaten path. You know what I'm talking about? Anyway, it's near Smallwood Store. And so I'm like, what are these things? And I'm like, well, you got all these things created here. What are you going to do with it? He goes, I don't know. I said, why don't you let me broker a deal and get it in this little museum? The statues of the masks that were found down in Marco Island when they uncovered Calusas and different things. And so worked a deal with then Randy, the owner, and put all those things up there. And it was a real cute thing. People got a kick out of it. And I could tell a little bit of the history with that. And so that was a lot of fun.
I remember back, so this is going back to right when they started, they enacted the Everglades Restoration Project back in the 80s, I guess, the early 80s, but there was no funding for it. I remember that was the longest time. And I had just gotten into real estate in 1989. And where I worked, one of the companies, we had double names on the building. One of them was called Golden Gate Estates Properties. And people would come in, they would just stop in. You know, I mean, that's back when people still stopped in real estate offices.
Yeah.
But one was my mother. She started the company, Donna Anderson Real Estate, and the other side was that. And people would come in and say, I got this letter from the state. And here I was 19 years old, you know. And I'm like, what are these? What are these? And one of the women that worked there, her husband's grandfather or uncle was part of Delano, who was the original, you know, cut in the canals and build the roads. And so she's like, oh, and she told me the whole backstory of how it started and then brought me up to date. We probably had over 100 people come in with letters or call about what do I do about this letter? And I'm like, well, I got to the point where I printed a bunch of the plat maps and sent people like, where's yours? Okay, this is where it is. You go over Everglades Boulevard. I don't think a lot of people understand.
It was just chopped up land, probably with water.
Yeah, I don't think people understand like where that all restoration began and why we needed it.
Yeah.
And I didn't even understand. It was probably 2 years later. I was doing a pageant. I did pageants back then. And I was young, and I'm like, I think I was doing like Miss Florida or Miss Naples, something or the other. And I was like, who do I get for, the things you give out? Well, I was like, I'm going to contact the water district because they were huge back then. Like they just started this whole water district thing. And I said, let me see what they'll send me. And so they sent me the trinkets and stuff, and Nassau sent me trinkets and stuff. But they sent me this map that was taken from the space shuttle. And it was sheeting. You could actually see the sheeting from Okeechobee all the way down.
Yeah.
And it was just incredible to look at it. And so working in that office and then seeing that map, I wish today I could find it.
Yeah.
Because I think it would really help people understand why it's so important. And it's not because it has nothing to do with tree hugging.
No.
It has everything to do with water.
Yeah, water. Exactly. It's water,
It's
right?
simply just water that we need to survive, especially the lower you get in the state. I don't think people get that, but I don't know. That's my only knowledge on the water part. But it was and Golden Gate Estates.
Yeah.
The
and
history
then they had
that
to start buying all those back up and taking land. Oh, that was I
and
ran into a
people-
couple of people that was painful to listen to their
stories of how
but it's how they had what they had to do.
Yeah, and there's only a few left right as you come over the bridge. My understanding, there's only a handful of streets that they left, and they were able to leave those streets because the actual Picayune and whatever, there's like 3 or 4 names out there of conservation land. It doesn't start until after those 4 or 5 streets.
Yeah.
And so people ask, like, why are those there? Well, because it technically doesn't start, not for any other reason, but they need a road to get to whatever's going on. So I was like, oh, another historical thing that that's one time we developed and corrected the mistake.
Yeah. And we're trying to correct the Tamiami Trail now. They didn't know by building those roads that they were cutting off the flow if they'd left the little...
Right, the underneath.
You don't know what you don't know, and then there you go.
Well, this is where science and history kind of come together later and say, oh, that's why we need to do that.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. Now, you tell me about your education of the younger generation. I've heard that you've been doing or you have done some history fairs and things like that.
Yeah, we got Collier County, although most counties in Florida were participating in the Florida History Fair. And we got a few schools to participate. And then there's a state competition that if you're judged, for your product to be good, it could be a paper, it could be an exhibit, it could be a poem, it could be 5 different things. And we would take them up to national, and to the state, and we give them this great experience on what other kids were doing around the state. And our first year we did it from Seacrest. The group went to nationals and came in like 5th or something like that, 7th, 5th, whatever. But my gosh, of course, then I'm thinking, oh wow, we've just gotten this going, just great. And but it takes, you have to constantly stay with it. And now I started working with the Holocaust Museum to do the World War II piece and teaching about that using the World War II Heritage Trail Guidebook, that they could use. I'm not sure. I've got to go back and check because somebody said, because the Holocaust curriculum was part of what they taught in the schools. And I just want to check to be sure that it's still there.
Oh yeah, that's true. There's a few things
I,
going on in the world.
somebody had mentioned that, and things go by so fast, and all of a sudden something's gone, and you're like, oh well, what happened to it? So I'll have to look into that. So that was, but I remember we let the kids pick their topics and so forth. I remember one of the funniest ones was, and I could just see, and I had all my judges, I had a lot of council people and so forth, and it was on how tampons changed the dancing world. And they all look down the line at me. I go, don't look at me. That's not my job. That's a project but it was a great project.
Yeah.
Because her father was a gynecologist, and they interviewed all these women who were able to do things and so forth. It just was a topic you didn't expect.
Right. But you know what? She picked a topic that was important to her.
It was great. Yeah. But it wasn't as great as the faces of the judges looking down at me like, whatever.
Well, you know, that's also part of change.
Well,
you're going to get different topics as things change in the world.
We had some really cool topics. So, probably nationally known as one of the best programs that it was out of Pensacola. Remember the movie Jaws?
Yes.
Okay, everybody's watching that now. And on Quinn, he had a tattoo, and while they were under stairs drinking and so forth, he goes, "What's that tattoo?" "But I love Mom." He goes, "Oh no, that's the USS Indianapolis." And that's on June the 30th. July 30th. USS Indianapolis was sunk by a Japanese submarine. And it sunk in infested waters, shark-infested waters. Remember that? Something like 900 people were on board, only 300 and something survived because they didn't know that they were missing. Well, this young man is watching this program with his dad. He goes, "Is that true?" He goes, "Well, why don't you do your research?" So he did his research. He entered it into the Florida History Fair. And during that, he was able to interview the captain of the Japanese submarine.
No way. That's awesome.
To explain the side of the story, because Captain McVeigh had been accused of misconduct, getting his people killed, and he committed suicide 4 or 5 years after that. But they were able to come before Congress. They got the Japanese guy over here. They spoke before Congress. Now, this guy's like in high school now, but he was in the 8th grade when he did this project.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and they got him exonerated, and he stayed in touch with all of, it's called, Lois, come on, get your head right. But you think about the USS Indianapolis, the student that got McVeigh exonerated, got him cleared of all that.
Just from starting the story from Jaws.
So Jaws, looking up and doing it and so forth, and he stayed friends with all of the people from the U.S. every year. I'm not sure there are any more survivors. But that project from the history fair, and they lived in Naples, 2 of them here. Dottie and Mr. Bucket. They were
Residents.
They were one of our World War II
Okay, families, yeah.
families, and so, that was really what got me all excited about the history fair. I'm thinking these kids don't realize what they could actually
Well,
do.
when they deep dive, I think, and something piques their interest, they go, "Oh, I want to learn more," and that's how we entice the next generation.
And that's where computers come in good, because you can, that really was.
It does make it go a little faster than going to the library and the old encyclopedias.
Well, and the in-depth. I mean, anyway, that was a wonderful experience, and I went back to a couple of schools. I actually paid a little stipend to some teachers, but I wanted to use that money for something else, and I kind of figured they would be such into the groove, and then they were like, "Nah."
Well, the teachers are torn in so many directions nowadays.
But
there's
anyway,
so much going on.
Say it's not really any extra work. You just have to take the work you do and then
Direct them into the fair.
just put it into that. So,
well, maybe again from hearing this,
you never know.
People hear things, and they get when they hear things on a podcast, they get, "Oh, I didn't know about that."
Yeah.
So, in closing, you've been here for a lot of change in Naples. I think we're on our 3rd round of change. When you look at Naples as a community now versus when you moved here, what would you hope that they don't change or that we can restore or keep in our history?
What would I hope they don't change?
Or that we could keep? If they have to change it, we can at least keep it in our history.
I hope they keep downtown Old Naples, that 5th Avenue, all that down in that area, and they don't put up these bridges and archways that they were going to put over I'm just like, this is the charm.
They wanted
This
to
is the
create-
goose that laid
yeah.
the, it's changed a lot. And you can, it's upscale now, and you can do that. But if you start really doing,
Changing the landscape.
the whole thing of that just changes. And because I love that little area, because it is the history. Once you really, and you get to know the people. I got to know a lot of the old timers when they had their. You go to the old timers events. Were you here?
I was here, but I haven't gone
Right.
to them. Yeah.
And it's just so colorful, and the stories are so great, and I love how they bicker and and so forth.
No,
and,
it was then. No, it was this year. No, it was that year. Yeah.
and just the charm. I think about Sam Colding, who was the second tax collector, and just his wit was just they're just too wonderful.
Yeah.
And I just hope those stories and they sort of keep that.
I think when we came, it was that generation, this from 78, 75, like those years, we got to see the change, and some of it we like, some of it we don't, whatever. But I think we got to see some of the greatest generations of Naples still here.
Yeah.
And thriving and doing so much that really laid the foundation for this community.
Remember when Ace Hardware opened up on 41, and they just remodeled their whole building, and they have all the history pictures around. I helped them work on that. And when that cocktail came to thank the people, Sam Colding, Arthur Ayers. I have to say it like that because that's how Arthur Ayers had a water to Arthur Ayers. So I said, Sam, why don't you go around and interview some people, and that way you can chat with them. So he went to Arthur. He goes, well, Arthur, tell me about the winds. Well, Hurricane Donna was just so bad, and all the water, and he was going on. And Sam goes, well, that's real interesting, but tell us about the winds. And then he went telling stories about the wind. He said, now, Arthur, we're here for the Wind family. What can you tell me about them? Or we're falling out of our seats laughing because Sam is so... And Arthur didn't crack a smile and goes, well, they have a lot. But then he just sort of went into it. But, I wish I could find that. I have to call Michael and see if he still has that.
Oh, that would be great.
It was a great moment when you have two, first tax collector and tax assessor, or they were the second each. And that was just a great moment to watch that happen with Gene Walker Humphreys and Mrs. Gaynor.
You're mentioning so many names. Like I was little when I knew about these names, but because my mom was involved in real estate, and she met a lot of these people.
Oh, yeah.
Because you had to go actually do, like if you wanted to do research on a piece of property, you had to go down to the courthouse and down to the, if we wanted to find out what property was next door, we had to slide the microfiche over and go back and ask for another one because they'd only want you after a while to check out one because people would forget to bring them back. And so these names are the names on the doors. And like I remember Guy Carlton the most.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man,
He really changed a lot about tax collecting in Collier County, the website.
Yeah.
He was very forward thinking on so many things that were created back then that we still use today.
Yeah.
I think our assessor site is pretty similar too, but that's another story. They just didn't update, but it's still, we can still find things. It's not crazy. I've been to the Lee County one and I can't find anything on there. Theirs is just too cluttered. But anyways, did you have anything you wanted us to know before we end for today about yourself or Naples community? Or did we really cover a lot of territory?
I have my notes down there.
Oh, I think they're there.
Well, just keep reading my articles in Life in Naples. Listen to the podcast on
All the
Friday
places.
mornings at 8 o'clock with 239 Live. I always talk about history or veterans, and I always try to do a little education piece because those young bucks, they're forgetting things
A little bit. Yeah. No, I love that you're doing that for the community. because somebody has to. And
Yeah.
I think you're a great person to be our historian.
Yeah, thank you. I have fun with it. I have a good time with it. And
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us today.
oh, thank you for having me.
And so that wraps up today with Dr. Lois Bolin. Like she said, you can check out her podcast and read those articles on the, what was it called?
Life in Naples.
Life in Naples. Yeah, there we go. All right. See you on the next episode of Icons of Naples. Thank you for joining us today on Icons of Naples. I hope you enjoyed learning about our history on this series. And a special thank you to Ferrari of Naples for allowing us to use this amazing space. And a special thank you to our series sponsor, Robert of Philadelphia. To find all of our episodes on Icons, be sure to check out your favorite podcast platform, or you can also find us on YouTube. Remember to subscribe and follow to keep up to date on all the latest episodes. And don't forget to share. See you again on the next Icons of Naples.